If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hello listeners, and welcome to Season 3 of the Cult Vault podcast. I'm your host Kacey, and I wanted to update this introduction to offer a few additional trigger warnings about upcoming content. As you likely know, this is a podcast about cults, extremism, coercive control, and abuses of all types. A platform for survivors and victims to share their experiences, change misconceptions, and help advocate for and educate others. Given the recent election results in America and the nature of upcoming interview themes, I wanted to remind listeners that each episode comes with a content warning for themes of murder, abuse and harm, and abortion rights and restrictions. Please take care when listening to each installment. Self-care practices may include being outside for walks or gardening, or leaning into friends and family and loved ones, or participating in an activity that brings you joy, like a trip to the cinema, or exercise, or taking a nap. Whatever self-care looks like to you, be sure to practice these things when listening to this material and any other material like this. For early access to ad-free episodes, you can find me on patreon.com/thecultvault for as little as £1 a month. Thank you so much for my patrons for being such a beacon of support, and I look forward to our monthly video call catch-ups at the end of each month. Lastly, I'm so very excited for my favourite weekend of the year in June 2025, CrimeCon UK in London on the 7th and 8th of June. Partnered with True Crime, this is going to be the biggest and busiest and best CrimeCon UK to date, with expert speakers, survivors and advocates of justice taking to the stage to discuss their work in the field of true crime. It's the UK's biggest true crime event, and it's jam-packed with talks and events throughout the weekend, with the most flexible ticket options available, including day tickets, night tickets, weekend tickets, concessions, and different options for payment plans available now at crimecon.co.uk. I will be at the event. I'm so glad that I've been invited back again, and hopefully you will see me up on the big stage, and I look forward to seeing you all there. Head to crimecon.co.uk and use the code CULT, C-U-L-T, at the checkout for 10% off your tickets. And patrons, you can contact me for an additional reduction in ticket prices. Now, on to today's show.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Cult Vault podcast. I'm your host, Kacey, and I'm sitting down with a guest that I have already spoken to and recorded an interview with. But because of technical issues, which you can't avoid with a podcast, we are re-recording this episode today, which I'm really grateful for. Hi, Sarah. Would you like to reintroduce yourself to the listeners?
Hi, my name is Sarah Darmofalski, and I was in the Lord Julius cult in Connecticut for quite a few years.
The Lord Julius cult is one that gathered quite a significant following, but I don't believe that it's one that's particularly focused on in other podcasts and documentaries and such. It goes by a number of other names. So could you talk us through what some of those names are and the early days of the kind of cult origins?
The only one I know about is like the work. More recently, it's been called the Scriptural Research Center. That's what my aunt calls it. When I went there, we just called it Bible study, and it's centered around this one man, the Lord Julius. That's what he called himself. I don't know if that was his real name. His last name was Schacknow, and he said he was the second coming of Jesus Christ, the sinful Messiah, and people believed him, I guess. My mom and my dad followed him. My aunt still does. My sister was in for a while, and they got baptized, and they just basically said that we were like the only ones who knew the truth, and everyone else is like evil and going to hell. And we had to go to Jerusalem to be raptured. So I was like living with a passport in my back pocket thinking that I had to move to Jerusalem at the drop of a hat. If we had it was the end times, and then we had to be raptured in Jerusalem. So it was a little crazy growing up.
Yeah, it sounds wild. It sounds like Julius Schacknow, who called himself Brother Julius, Lord Julius.
Well, he was more like he called himself the Lord Julius. A lot of the ex-followers who looked down on him, they would call him Brother Julius, to mock him in that way.
With this particular group, were you born into the work, or was it that your parents joined when you were younger?
I was born into it. My parents joined, and then they had me, and they had this idea we can only have 2 kids. I might have to get my tubes tied. They had all these weird rules that they were following but it doesn't make sense. I mean, if the world's going to end, why would you want to bring kids into a crazy, sinful world where the Messiah is going to end it and you have to move to Jerusalem to be raptured? It doesn't make an awful lot of sense to my brain. So
did Julius call himself the sinful Messiah as well?
I think so. The second coming, the sinful Messiah, he would call himself the Son of Man. Anywhere where it said in the scriptures, he would put himself in the scriptures where it would refer to as the Son of Man. Jesus would talk about it, and he would say, "That's me, the sinful Messiah, the second coming, the Son of Man." Although he would insert himself into the scriptures and really just twist it around. Not I believe in the Bible anymore, but not in that way.
Right. So do you have any idea what drew your parents towards the work? Was it kind of a geographical thing, or were they targeted for recruitment?
I think my mom was damaged. Her dad had died. She had trouble when she was growing up, and I don't think she had the best self-esteem. And they would tell me their origin story, and he said things to him. I guess people say he was a very charismatic person, and he knew things that no one else would know unless he was the Lord. And she would tell me he told her a story, and he drew her in, and I think my dad joined, and that's where they met. And my dad, I think he was going to college, and then he felt like he wasn't right or something. But I think his family had issues too, because my aunt was in a mental hospital, and they were they had their own family issues. So I think it was a combination of things, the geographical, he was there and he met him, but also maybe he spoke to their heart and said something, and that's why they believed. But I think it also had something to do with their past, and maybe they were a little bit damaged and they needed something and they were looking for it, and he filled that void.
And your brother's sister is the same person that's still in the group today?
Yeah, my dad's sister. Yeah, my dad's sister, my aunt, not my brother. I only have a sister.
Yeah, well, 2 children. It's interesting that your parents just had exactly 2 children and no more, no less.
A lot of them did. Yeah, a lot of them tried to only have 2 kids and get their tubes tied because the world's ending. And I don't know why that was a weird belief, but a lot of
what
them
would
did
have
follow
happened
that.
if you had a child and then got pregnant with twins?
I don't know. I mean, they didn't all follow that structure, and they didn't all stay in, because I got kicked out of the cult when I was 10, but it was almost like a rite of passage. Everybody got kicked out for stupid reasons, and then they wanted to come back in. It was almost like a relationship, what do you call it? One of those damaging relationships where they want what do you call it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, a toxic relationship where you fight with each other, but you always go back to each other. Well, I think that there are so many similarities in abusive relationships as there are in cults. And oftentimes what I think we find is that the abusive parts of cults do actually tend to follow families home. And then those same patterns within the cults are repeated within the family environment as well, whether that's between partners or whether that's kind of parents onto children or children onto parents. It kind of like trickles down and then just repeats in smaller environments. I suppose a lot of the time that's because it's what is normal for people in those types of destructive groups. But when you were younger, what are some of your first memories of this particular group? Kind of like your day-to-day expectations of your parents, how much time you and your family were expected to give to this group, and kind of how that might differ from a typical young person's experiences of childhood.
I think it did consume a lot of our life because we would go to like Sunday meetings, we would go to Saturday meetings. Some of them would be like all day long, and then we would have like baptisms at People's Forest, and like we would go in the like dunking in the water and meeting at people's houses, and like your whole life was this group. Like you had to separate yourself from your family, and you would do like holidays and events and birthdays. Like everything would be the cult, and they would try to drive you away from your personal relationships. So I remember like Sunday school at people's houses, and we would just be, it was an integral part of your life. So when I got kicked out, it was like a little bit devastating, but I guess it was good for me. But not when I went back, when I was in like high school and college. But I didn't really want to. It was more like following my mom and my sister. I don't know. I guess I don't know if I was really in control of my life at that point, or if it was something that I wasn't agreeing with it, but I went along for a while because I was more of a follower than a leader.
So this particular group doesn't sound as though it has like a formal setup or a particular place where people congregate, or a church, house or building. It seems to kind of be one of these communal groups where people take it in turns to host at their houses.
There was a hall that they rented for a while. I don't remember exactly where it was, but I do vaguely remember it in my mind. And then we did rent, when I got older, they rented from another place where they would like set up. But it wasn't like, I don't know if they owned all these places. And I know that they had like a whole bunch of like he owned like real estate companies. And I think he owned like a Frankie's franchise and like had his people working there. And a lot of people, I would hear stories where they wouldn't get paid well. They would work long hours. And once I was out of the cult and started researching it, there was all this weird stuff going on. And I think he used the money for like personal reasons, like with his own family and profiting off of people. There was a lot of bad business going on. He wasn't a good guy. He was more of like a con man than a real like messiah or whatever, or someone that actually cared about you.
In some publications online, I think it's People's Magazine, have an investigative piece that they've written called The Sinful Messiah, and it's about Brother Julius, Lord Julius, and it calls the work a sex cult. Now, I don't agree with that particular term. I don't know if you can box cults into groups like, sometimes I think you might be able to say it was a political cult. But, Arshin Rikyo was a political cult and a doomsday cult and a religious cult. Like, it's got lots of different elements within it. And I think that that's the same with groups that have prolific sexual abuse within them. Nexium is called a sex cult at times, but there was also a lot of human trafficking and financial exploitation. So I don't know if you can just box cults in the way that a lot of media pieces do. But why do you think that some newspapers and magazines might call this group a sex cult?
I think, well, his wife, I don't think it was really his wife, it was one of his followers like one of his chief apostles. We called him Brother Matthias. His wife kind of, I think they were like almost sharing, like it was weird, the relationship with the woman that we called the Holy Spirit. She was believed that, like, Brother Julius's wife, we called her we believed she was the Holy Spirit, and it was actually Brother Matthias's wife. And I don't know how the intergoings, like, but he did sleep. I think he did sleep with quite a few women within the cult, and a lot of people did think that that was his main objective, was to just get to start the cult and get into these women. I don't know. I think that was part of it, but I don't know if that was the whole thing. Because I think he did father quite a few children. And I never got it, because I felt like all these older women were kind of like throwing themselves at him, and he's kind of a creepy guy, kind of. I never really liked him. I got this bad vibe from him, even when I was little. I'm like, why are we, like, I told one of my friends, that I would come into the house, we would have to like say, peace be on the house. We would have all these like little rituals that you have to do that would like set us apart, and we weren't allowed to like celebrate regular holidays. And then like I had this picture on my wall, and I'd be like, oh, this is God. I told like my best friend when I was little, and she told her mom, and she's like, Sarah, that's not God. You can come to our church if you'd like. So I knew from a very young age that it was basically a cult, and he was not really God. I didn't really believe, but my parents had brought me into it, so.
So you, in this particular group, were allowed, I suppose, to have relationships and friendships outside of the group. Was this kind of like typical, or was this more like your parents giving you the option to mix with people outside the work?
I think it was discouraged, but I think I went on my own. I mean, it depends on the person, because like some of the people would be homeschooled and they would be more sheltered than I was, but we were allowed to go to like regular school, and I had friends. But there was a point in time where in high school, like there was this brother Childlike, who would encourage me. You would need to cut ties with unbelievers and don't be friends with these people. And there was a point when I did, like I tried to do that, and I actually fell into like a deep depression. Like I cut ties with one of my like best friends, who she was trying to talk me out of the cult too, like when in high school. And for a while we did cut ties, but I mean, I have managed relationships. I mean, I don't have a ton of friends, but I mean, it's different now, because I really try to stay away from those people. If I see them, I'm like, run the other way. I don't want to see them at all. I don't want to talk to them. It's like, please. I almost want to move away sometimes, just start a new life, because I don't want to be a part of it or be associated with it or these people. Especially my aunt. It's craziness. If they still believe, you know.
You're living in the area where the group is still, as the Scriptural Research Centre, not as the work, still active in your community.
It's smaller. It doesn't have as many followers. I mean, they still believe, they still worship. I mean, this man, he died, he passed away, but they have his writings, they have his music, they still like try to follow. Like my aunt, when I was with her, like she would always say, oh, you say peace be on this house, and then as soon as I would come into the house, they would like lay hands on me and say peace be on you, Sarah. And I'm like, what, is there something wrong with me? Like I feel like they're damaging me. And that was part of the reason why I kind of cut ties with them, because they were too religious, too rude. They would like discipline my kids. They didn't have any kids of their own. They don't know what they're talking about. And I just didn't love the overly religious. Like I'm not religious at all anymore. So I had to cut ties with her. So it was just too much, because I don't want them damaging my kids the way I felt I might have been a little bit damaged as I was growing up.
And you mentioned one of the other people in the group with you as a young person, Brother Childlike, would encourage you to not have friendships outside the group. I mean, for you and I to hear somebody be given a name like that is probably not, it's not unfamiliar. But for people that have never really dived into the psychology behind cults and the tactics of control, it might be very strange for somebody to be like, Brother Childlike, was that really his name? So please talk us through the change in names that you each received and the name that you received.
Well, like as soon as you got brought into the cult, they would assign you a name. Like my mom's name was like prayerfulness. My dad's name was firmness. And they gave me the name of neighborliness and then leadingness. And then as I got older, they like changed my name to boldness. But they wouldn't let you call yourself Sarah. It was like they were trying to redefine you, take your name away and take your identity away. And now all you knew was the cult and this name, and you had to have other people call you that and become that. And it was a little confusing at times. And I think it's damaging too, because this is my identity. That's my name. You can't take away. They're trying to take away who you are and confuse you and lock you into where you can only do things that they want you to.
Yeah. And to just change your name at the drop of a hat as well. I mean,
Yes.
When people, get married or change their names by deed poll, it's a big thing. It's a big thing that people have to go through, not just legally and with paperwork, but also the way that you change your name in emails and the way that you, put your name on paperwork going forward and the way that people then address you in your life going forward. It's not a small thing where people just say, we're going to change your name from boldness to tenderness, and expect people to then just call you this new name. And it's so unpersonal, isn't it? It's so, how can you really build deeper, meaningful relationships and friendships with people if they don't even really get to know your name? Like,
it's very true, because I remember like I would see people, I'm like, I don't even know their name. I just know their word. And it's just like, what do I call them? Should I say something? Should I just avoid them? And even like the last time that I got my name changed to boldness, the creepiest thing they said was, oh, we're bringing back the dead. Like there was this old person called Boldness, and now this person died, and now they're giving it to me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so creepy. It's like, what is going on with these people? Like I should have known or something.
I mean, our daughter's named after my grandma, but that's a very different thing, isn't it? Yeah. It's like kind of like an homage to my grandma. She was such a special person in my life that now my daughter has her name and she'll carry that forward with her. But to be told that you're being given a name after somebody that's passed away that you've never met is a bit different.
Their name. It was a name that was given to them.
Right.
What is their real name? Like, it makes me think about how many people have died and passed away that never really knew themselves, that got their name taken away, that died in this cult, and how much life have we lost? How much of history have we lost? I mean, these people could have been doctors, they could have been lawyers, they could have changed the history of this world, but instead they chose to join a cult and serve some con man. And I think that's the saddest part, that we've been robbed of these people that could have been something in life.
You talked earlier about how it was almost a rite of passage in this group that at some point individuals or families as a unit would be kicked out of the group and then would have to grovel and apologize and work their way back into the group, almost like Schacknow got some sadistic pleasure from having people beg, to come back to him. What were your experiences leading up to your family being kicked out, and then how did that all happen?
Well, there were a couple things that they mentioned, like, oh, your house isn't clean enough, or you're eating fast food, or like you're not worthy enough, you don't take this serious enough, you're late to meetings, oh no, you like it's marked off on your, like, you got an F on your test or something. So it's just like, there were a couple things that led up to it, and then we were allowed to go. And I think you have to work your way back in. Like, it's kind of, it hurts as a child because they cut you off. And then like they say like, oh, don't talk to those people who are kicked out. They're not as good as you. And then even when my sister and my mom, my dad never went back. But now he does seem integral in it. Like he still has friends there. And I'm just like, I don't know if I want to associate with you if you don't believe it was a cult. Because I don't really talk to my dad anymore. He's too negative in other ways, but he also talks about the cult and is involved with these people. So I tried to stay away from him because it's just like, I'm trying to start my own life. I've been through therapy and it's just like, I don't want that anymore. But like they separate you and then when we tried to go back, like I would only be allowed to go to Saturday meetings and they looked down upon us and like, oh, well, you're not really part of this group. You haven't been. And I like invited some of these people to like my son's birthday party. And I thought, oh, I'm making friends with these people that I was friends with. And I thought maybe they would like reciprocate. And then like, they're like, oh, this girl thinks that she can just come back and be part of, and they didn't treat me well. They were rude. They were horrible to me. And it's just like, why? Like, I don't want to be a part of that if they're not going to really accept me and love me. And instead of looking down on me and thinking that they're better than me because they've been with the Lord's work forever and they're the real chosen people. And I'm just like an outcast trying to come back. So I think we always had like this scarlet letter on us, like this mark against us, like we're not true believers or something. And I never felt accepted. So that's why eventually I just stopped going. And my husband didn't really believe either. So, and I think he knew it was a cult.
With this particular tradition almost that your family are going through, did you have an idea of how your family would be spoken about once you were no longer attending services from experiencing other families and individuals who had been kicked out before you?
It's hard to remember because I was only 10 and I don't think I was in the culture of everything. And I was more with the kids. So, but I did experience it firsthand once it happened. So I think I was too young to really understand. I mean, maybe my parents would have seen it or felt it or understood it before that. But I don't think I did. I don't think I understood. I think it was just a shock to my system, basically.
So between being kicked out at the age of 10 for just, it was going to happen. Obviously, they were looking for, anything to, you've got a grey hair, you snoozed your alarm for 10 minutes. It seems to me that they were setting unrealistic expectations for your family to maintain. And the minute that any of those unrealistic expectations were broken, you were removed from the group. This is also not uncommon across groups, but as a child who's been discouraged to having relationships outside of the group and having your whole world and your parents' world kind of revolve around this group must have been extremely confusing and disorienting for a child to go through and to then, fill up your time with other things once you'd been removed from the group. So do you have any memories of the changes in your kind of lifestyle in the period where you weren't attending the group?
I felt it was nice. I felt it was like a little bit freeing after the initial shock, and like you lose a lot of friends, you lose a lot of relationships, and then you almost feel like rejected by God. Like there's something wrong with you. Why did he reject you? And I mean, it was nice to have that little bit of freedom, but my mom and my sister always like wanted to go back. Like after 9/11, that he started this outreach again. Like they were trying to get all of the people back to join again, and that's when we went back. And it does kind of suck the life out of you. It's really not good for anyone to be a part of these groups. So I regret it, and I didn't want to go back. So it was a big lifestyle change between being in there and a regular church you go to on Sunday and you don't normally see these people. It's only like a couple hours. It's not a big lifestyle change if you stop going. But with a cult, it's different.
Did you notice a change in your parents at all in that time when you'd stopped attending services?
I think so. I think they fought more. I think they would still listen to some of the tapes. They would still, I don't think they always associated with the people. And like when we went back and my dad wouldn't go back, there was definitely a rift between my mom and my dad. But I mean, it was like, as I was growing up, I always wondered, I'm like, why did they even get married? They didn't even know each other. And like, they wouldn't even talk about it. It's like, they just joined a cult. And then it was almost like a lot of times they had like these wall marriages. Like they would say, you here with this person, here, here. Like they would just like line up people on a wall and have a bunch of weddings to have more kids, to have more followers, to build the cult, to, I don't know, do whatever they want to do. Con people out of their money, I guess.
How much time passed between your family being told to leave the group and your and the women of the family returning to the group?
Let's see. I was 10 and then I think we rejoined when I was like in high school. It was almost 10 years, maybe 10 years or so. I mean, some people like still associated with us and we were still friends with some people. Like I would write letters with certain people and I would still be friends with certain people. But for the most part, we weren't part of the group. And then I really felt like when we came back, we weren't accepted. So, and I never liked it and I didn't want to stay, but I think like I told you, I was more of a follower than a leader. And I just went because people told me what to do when I was younger. It's hard when you're the child, like the baby of the family. So you kind of get dragged along with certain things.
I mean, when you've had all of your decision making done for you, not by your parents, but by the leaders of the group that your parents are a part of, that's got to be, difficult in independent decision making as you grow into adulthood. Have kind of like the same amount of time spent in the group, repeated in the same amount of time outside of the group, and then to be taken back into it. It's got to kind of give you whiplash, You're just learning to become independent and learn who you are and have autonomy over yourself and your decision-making and your spiritual beliefs, which is some of the most personal things that you can have as an individual. And then, just be thrown back into this place you were a decade ago. That must have kind of put you all over the place.
I think it does rip apart your psyche a little bit. It does like make you wonder who you are. And even after I had gotten out of it, I always had problems with mental health issues and depression and anxiety. When you're brought up in cult, you can't take medication, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't like seek help. And that was part of my problem. Like I didn't seek help. And I think that was a good part that damaged me for many years until I think the only thing that helped me break out of it was I found a therapist who was also in a cult. So she understood me, she helped me. And I found good like med management people. And it takes a while though. It does take a long while when you're programmed into these ideals when you're little and that becomes part of who you are. Or who you think you are. You don't really know who you are.
Just working out who you are and what parts of yourself you want to keep when you leave a group and what parts you want to stay in the group and, what parts the group encourage where you think, oh, actually, that is part of the group that I did enjoy. So how do I enjoy that for myself and not for the group's purposes? And all of these really tricky things, like sometimes people will say, I don't like listening to a cappella music anymore. But it was something I really enjoyed being a part of when I was in a group. So I'm trying to work out how to reclaim that part of my life without connecting it or having it just solely interconnected with the cult itself. So as a person in high school, which is stressful enough anyway, you know, the hormones and the growth developments and the social aspects of high school and the exam pressures, and then the questions of, you know, what are you going to do when you leave, or what are your aspirations for the future? All of those things are really difficult. And then when you add in the consideration of growing up in a cult and being asked, what do you want to do when you leave school, when you've been told your whole life, you know, to expect the end of the world and to not make it past a certain age.
Like, yeah, it was confusing.
Do you have any kind of recollections of what high school was like at this time? And I think I asked you this question last time. Did any teachers or staff pick up on something being, you know, wrong and you being in periods of distress? Or did you just kind of go through school undetected with these struggles regarding the cult?
I think for the most part, I was undetected until I started to really push into like boundaries and talk to people about it. Because the weird thing is, you're like supposed to not really tell people that you're in a cult, but you're not supposed to know you're in a cult, but you're also supposed to recruit people from. So how do you do that? So I told like a lot of my friends. I don't think the teachers knew, but some of my friends would know, and they'd be like, Sarah, I don't know about that. Like a lot of them were not very. They're like, I'm not so sure about your religion here, Sarah. So I did have some friends who knew, but not really. I don't think any of my teachers were adults really knew. So except for maybe my best friend's mom, because my best friend. But that was more when I was younger, at like 10 years old, because I'm still friends with her. And we've been friends forever. So, and her mom is like a key part in my life because my mom was never really there for me. And it was nice to have like her mom there for me when I needed someone.
Is this the same mom that invited you to her church so that you could have a look at how things are done a bit differently? Did you go with her?
It was like Faith Living Church. It was a different church. It was definitely nicer. The people there were more inviting. But I mean, now I'm just like swearing off religion as a whole. So I don't know if I believe in anything really, or if I'm more agnostic or atheist, or I don't know. I think I'm still trying to figure it out at this point because of what I was involved with when I was younger.
So you return with your sister and your mum to the group, reluctantly on your part. What is it doing for your sister and your mum at this time, as far as you can remember, or at least kind of on a surface level? Did they seem comfortable going back, like back where they felt they should be, or was it a struggle for them as well?
I think my mom needed it because she was still so much of a follower and still much so involved. And they almost put her in like this child relationship. Like I don't know if she ever grew up. I think she depended on the cult. So I think it might have been good for my mom to be involved, but I don't think it was good for my sister. I mean, she started to see the bad parts of the cult, and she was invited to Sunday meetings, but I was only invited to Saturday meetings. So we were each on our own like level. But then I talked to her about it, and she's like, oh, it's not good. Don't talk to these people, and they're rude. And she would see the bad parts too. So I think she started to see the negative effect also. But I don't know if my mom ever did before she passed away. But she also started to have health issues.
And did she seek medical attention for those health issues?
No, not for her mental health. I don't think she ever got the help that I got. And I think that might have been where it started. But then like the mental health issues, I don't know. I think they snowballed into physical health issues. And I think that's why I kind of blame the cult for her early death for not, because she could have sought help. She could have gotten the help she needed. And I think I still have a lot of anger attached to that.
That has to be a difficult thing to kind of address within yourself as well. I imagine where you can't have conversations with your mum and try and have some closure or understanding, or kind of ask her about her perspective and her memories of how things were when you were a child and her decision-making process. I don't know if that's something that they cover in therapy, but I imagine it must be.
Well, I think they robbed her. I think they robbed her of her life, and she didn't get all these experiences that she could have had. And like I would hear my dad talk about like this other woman that he knew before my mom, and my mom would talk about other like her life before the cult. And it's hard to like I don't know if they were ever happy, and it's hard to think about like what could have been or what would have been without this man and his influence on them. So
yeah, a whole life just spent being in a situation that makes you unhappy or where you can't be authentically yourself is something that I think is one of the really deeply sad things that's talked about on this podcast. Especially when it comes to, love and the idea of relationships with people that you can't have, because after all, some of the most joyous things we have in life are the relationships that we have with others, whether that's with our partners or our friends or our children and other family members. So you are in high school, you're not happy in this group, but you did mention that your husband didn't attend services. I actually, in the last recording, got to talk to your husband about what he thought when he met you and you told him about this group. I'm really sad that we can't use that audio, because it was really interesting for me to just be like, oh, can I just talk to your husband? What were your experiences around meeting this person who's not part of the group, kind of falling in love with this person and marrying somebody who was like, yeah, I don't know about this group that you go to?
it was a little weird because my best friend in high school introduced us. Like I kind of knew him. We went to high school together. We weren't in the same grade. We knew each other. We knew of each other, but we didn't really have a relationship in high school. It was after like he went to the army, and we ended up having like a long distance relationship because one of our mutual friends like hooked us up and we were dating. And then there was like this added thing of like, oh, you should marry someone in the cult and they have to believe what you believe. And we even had like a wedding in the cult, which like is something I regret. And I wish like I could have had the wedding that I dreamed of, like by the ocean, and we still talk about maybe like renewing our vows, but maybe eventually. We have like 4 kids now and it's expensive. It is something that I dream about and I talk about and we've discussed, but it's not something that's happened yet.
Gosh, that would be great.
It was a little weird because he didn't really, I think my friend told him it was a cult and he didn't really believe and he didn't like the way that they treated him. And so he didn't go. And there was like a little bit of a rift when I like kept going. But then eventually when I stopped, I think we might have gotten a little bit closer and things got better. But I think I also had to heal myself first from everything that happened. So once I got better myself, then I think things got better because there was like, but I think it was a lot of my depression. I don't know if it was from the cult or maybe not. I think it was tied in because I was encouraged not to seek help. And if things had been different, maybe it would have been different, but I don't know. It's hard to tell.
So you're married now, out of the group, and 4 kids later, still with your husband. And when I asked him the last time we recorded, I said, did you have an inkling that this was a cult? And he was like, oh yeah, it was a cult. I knew as soon as I walked in it was a cult. So
yeah.
Anybody's wondering what Sarah's opinion was of the group, that was his opinion. Short and sharp. He just knew. He was like, yeah, it was a cult. What I think is really interesting about the dynamic there is that he never told you, he never gave you an ultimatum. He never said, you can't go. I'm not going. I don't want you to go. Isn't that so different to the messages that you were being given from inside the group?
It is very different because I always felt like we had to marry in the cult. The person had to believe the same things, and it had to be like, because all the marriages you see in there are very together, and I think they're afraid that you'll marry someone outside of the cult, and they'll take you away from the cult. And I think that's what their main objective was, to stop. So
Yeah, well, they weren't wrong, were they, really?
yeah.
With the wedding ceremony, it's weird to me that your husband felt like they didn't treat him well, because with a lot of groups, there's the love bombing aspect, where they're like, oh, let's really show him why he should be a part. But maybe they were threatened. They were threatened to the point where they weren't able to love bomb. So they went down the other route instead and kind of tried to drive him away and drive a wedge between the two of you. Do you think that that's what was happening?
Well, I think it was like he only saw like Brother Matthias, who was like the one who got murdered. But he was like a hard hitting. He was rude. He was kind of mean. There's Brother Matthew, who like I think my husband got up and like was reading like a project that he worked on really hard, and like Brother Matthew like interrupted him, and like just his initial introduction into the group, he did not like the stereotype, the meanness, the rudeness, and I don't think he got any of that love bombing, like you said, like, any of that.
So just interestingly there, to go back on something you mentioned about the murder that took place within the Brother Julius cult, Lord Julius cult, the work, or the Scriptural Research Center, whichever one of the names you're using. When I first spoke to somebody about this cult, they also dropped that detail of the murder in kind of just off the cuff, and I had to kind of backtrack a bit and be like, hang on, what did you just say? Can you just back up a minute there? So in terms of Brother Matthias, his real name, from my understanding, was Paul Sweetman. What do you remember about this? Do you remember this happening? Do you remember him going missing? What can you tell us about this particular event, why it happened, and how everything unfolded?
Sure, how intertwined I was in the cult at the time. I think I was a little bit out of the group when it happened, but I did hear about it on the news, and I'm just like, this is really weird, because like I knew the people who had committed the crime, and I found out the story afterwards, and his wife was the one that the Brother Julius was taking as his wife and calling the Holy Spirit. Her name was Joanne Sweetman, and there was this big rumor that he was abusing her, and that was like the key reason why he got murdered. Like, if you read it in the newspaper, a lot of people say it was over money or it was over this. So it depends on who you talk to, like what the motive was. But it was a real grisly crime. I mean, I think they conspired. I think they murdered him. They chopped up the body. They just like hid it in a freezer. And then like later you would find like, I think a dog brought like a piece of leg or something on like a golf course, or that's where they found out everything. They found the body, and they didn't even solve the crime right away either. It was confusing, especially when I knew these people, and I didn't think that they were capable of murder. But I mean, it was a brainwashing cult thing. So if someone you think is the Holy Spirit telling you to go murder someone who is abusing her, you might have this righteous feeling that you're doing the right thing. What the hell?
It's a wild story. mentions golf players finding a human leg bone on the golf course. And that detail, I was just kind of like, hang on, wait, that is, cults are shocking, but that's like kind of crossing over into completely different territory. It's really complicated, isn't there?
It is a little confusing, I think, once I heard about it, and it was shocking. But part of me was like, I wasn't surprised because like I really didn't like this guy, and I wasn't saddened because he was not a nice guy. And I was like, I almost felt a little bad that I was like, oh, okay, he's dead. I don't really care.
So now that you are on the other side of this cultic experience, and although parts of it will likely stay with you for the rest of your life, how do you continue your recovery journey today? We've talked about accessing therapy. We've talked about kind of healing different parts of yourself and protecting your children from the experiences that you've had. Do you plan to talk to them about it at any point and kind of let them know the things that have happened? How do you protect your children? I think is a really interesting question, because I have the same worries, you know, about abusive people in the world and my tiny little cherubs. Yeah, what does kind of recovery look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
It's hard. My therapist taught me how to like go in and speak to myself and heal those parts of myself. We did like parts work, and we I think there were different ways that EMDR, like different like things that she would like pick up on and help me, because I would have like flashbacks and I would have bad memories and nightmares and stuff like that. I think we've worked a lot and it was helpful, but I think my kids have overheard things, but I don't know if I'll ever really tell them my whole story. Maybe if they ask. But I do want to protect them and keep them from any, like I do have a personal, I have this experience, so I know how to protect them from this. But it's also, I mean, that's their own life. I mean, you can't protect them from everything. It's just, I guess it depends on how it goes and if they listen, and because I didn't always listen to people either, so it's all your own journey.
It's definitely different from person to person in terms of what processes work, what things people want to try in their recovery journeys, and again what people don't. Sometimes, you know, if you were forced to journal every day in your life when you were growing up in a cult, you might not want to journal as part of your recovery and your healing. So on a kind of case-to-case basis, it's definitely different. I think it's always really interesting to ask people that question and see what they say. Sometimes you hear new things that you haven't heard and you think, wow, that sounds really helpful. And in terms of like keeping children safe, I don't know if we'll ever kind of crack that one, but we can definitely do our best. I think it's hard to balance making your children aware of the dangers in the world, but also allowing them to keep their innocence. It's hard to balance those two things. You know, you don't want to tell them that if they wander off to a place where you can't see them, a stranger might take them away. You know, but also you need them to know that they do need to stay where you can see them so that you can keep them safe. It's really hard. It's really hard to juggle those two things. And that's without the burden of knowledge that we have around cults and coercive control, because I feel like that adds so many extra layers of worry when your children go out into the world. But kind of wrapping up our conversation today, are there any words that you have for other people that may be listening that were born and raised in cults and are on their own journeys of recovery? And if there are any members or former members of the brother Lord Julius, the work cult listening, do you have anything that you would like to say to them as well?
I would just want them to know that there's hope, that they can reach out to people, that you're not too far gone. I would open myself up to talking and anything like that. It's just that you have to there is life after cults, I guess. And there is help. There are people who can help you. And because it's hard, because like when I first started therapy, I didn't even want to talk about the cult because I didn't think anyone would understand. And my aunt like drilled it into my head. Like, if you talk about like all like, because like we believed in like spirits and casting out spirits and stuff like that, and she would drill it into my head like, if you tell anybody, they're gonna lock you up and throw away the key. You're gonna be in an insane asylum for the rest of your life. And it's just like, so there was a part of me that held back until I found Greta. I found my therapist who was in a cult, who understood, who talked to me the right way. And that's where I finally started to get some footing. You have to find the right person. You have to find the right medication. There is help and there is a way out. There is hope.
How were you able to locate your therapist? Was it just by chance?
Well, through therapy, I started at with a regular therapist and different people. And through my journey, I found this one person. She's like, "Oh, you were in a cult." And then she found, I know this person. And then she typed into her computer. And she's like, she's found Greta for me. And she's like, "I don't think I can help you, but she can really help you." So it did take a few years before I found someone that was the right fit for me, because I don't think I got anywhere. Because, if you don't tell anyone, that was the first couple of years where I wasn't telling anyone about the cult. And then when I finally opened up about it, I had a different therapist and she helped me find the right fit for me. So it was a journey.
Massive thanks and shout out to Greta. She sounds awesome. It's so hard to find the right support that is so particular and niche. It's not just about being trauma informed or finding somebody that is trauma informed as a practitioner or a clinician. It's about finding somebody that understands cults and coercive control as well. So it's like a lot of different layers needed in order for people to access the right type of support. Most of the time, I would say, sometimes just kind of run-of-the-mill therapeutic modalities might work for individuals that have been in cults. But I think from what those born and raised in cults have talked about on the podcast overall, it's a whole different type of help that's needed. And I'm so glad that you were able to access the support that was kind of the start of you putting yourself together and finding out who you are.
There actually was a group too. She at one point she was able to facilitate a group of different people who were in different cults and do a group therapy, and that was very helpful to me. It made me feel like I wasn't alone, I wasn't crazy, there were other people like me. And that is something I miss a little bit, because she I think she had health issues and wasn't able to continue and stuff like that. So that is one thing I miss that maybe I would like to try again. If I don't know if I can find another group like that, but if there is anything else out there like that, I would like to try again with group therapy. And it was nice.
I know that the Lalich Centre, they do group support sessions, and so do the Family Survival Trust. So they're just two things.
Maybe you could send me an email or something.
I will. I'll get some resources together and I'll send them over, and then I'll also pop them in the episode description for anybody listening who thinks that accessing that type of support might be helpful to them. So we're at the end of our conversation today. Second time we've done this. Fingers crossed and touch wood that it actually works this time, and that we don't have any technological issues. Is there anything that you would like to say, Sarah, to wrap up our episode today?
I would just like to say thank you for letting me get my truth out there. And I think this even helps me in my journey to heal from certain wounds. So thank you.
Thank you. You've given me extra amounts of your time, which I'm so appreciative of. I apologize again for the technical issues that we did have, but I think every single time somebody comes and sits down and talks about their experiences, it has this ripple effect that helps so many people, and we'll never really know how many people these conversations help. Some people reach out, but I imagine that most people don't. So it's going to be helpful for a lot of people, Sarah, you sitting down and sharing your experiences today. So thank you so much. Thank you to your husband again for the last conversation we had. And hopefully we can get this episode out next week super quick. But thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.